You are about to receive messages that may be harmful to your mental state. Your sense of reality will be questioned. Your view on things will be altered. You are now part of the Meta. The Meta controls everything. The Meta determines what will and will not happen. You are watching The Meta Show.
And we're live! Yay!
Hello!
We
yes,
did it!
We are live. We have succeeded. Everything appears to be not on fire, and it is a special edition of the Meta Show, the CSM Victory Show, where we basically smug and victory lap and make a whole bunch of puppies very angry. I am proud to have here our new representatives on the CSM. We have Brisk Rubal, the man, the myth, the legend. We have Merkelchen, also a man, also a myth, also a legend. And, of course, our usual friends, Nominated and Aerith, who are here all the time.
So and I believe they're on their third term, is that correct?
You guys aren't special. You guys are old news. You've been on the CSM forever. I don't even know. Like, at that point, you're sort of like clinical masochists, I think, going back for you know, I don't even know if you can, if that's a formal diagnosis or not, but there you go. Wow, what a week.
Yeah, this has been an amazing week. Real quick, shout out to Roland Hova, but we're gonna... The CSM election wrapped up, so we're gonna talk about that here in quite a big length. We're also gonna mock Star Citizen because I get to, and that's what the joy of the show is. And we're also gonna point out the fact that Eve broke for about 4 hours, and it broke pretty severely, and we're gonna get to talk about why that's a broken thing. And it's gonna be kind of hilarious.
Well, let's go ahead and dive into the top story then, and we'll go into maximum CSM smug, and we can get
we can go right
our
into
new
that.
representatives,
Yep.
no longer candidates, representatives, to talk about their experience.
I broke it again.
Looks like everybody's getting to see Brisk's smiling face.
Story.
On the top story is Brisk. That's excellent. Well, with that, let's.
There, I fixed it. We're good. We're good. I fixed it. We're good.
Well, Brisk, why don't you you say hello and introduce yourself to everybody? We have a real politician here. How do you feel, man?
I feel pretty good. I mean, the funny thing was, the guys in my office finally figured out that I was running about 4 days before the election finished, and the amount of teasing that I got was absolutely merciless. They refused to call me anything but Brisk in the office for 4 days. And we go into this fundraiser. I'm sitting next to Congressman Tom Suozzi from New York. We're hosting this fundraiser. I got my entire group of industry people with me. And my boss is sitting across the table and proceeds to tell everybody, oh, by the way, in a half an hour, we have to let Brisk, not Brian, Brisk, watch the show so that he can find out if he won or not. So we're all sitting there at this fundraiser, and it was hilarious. Everybody got into it. So that little victory video I did was the congressman holding up his phone and having me talk. It's kind of cool.
This is pretty amazing.
Nuts.
That's fantastic. That is a real collision of real life politics and space politics right there. But that's awesome. So also pretty crazy. I mean, Merkelchen decided to run this year, and he's seen a Nominated Aerith go through the process year over year. So, I mean, Brisk, you have an excuse. This is your first time. You have no idea what's on the other side of this border. You know, at least Merkelchen has seen what a Nominated and Aerith have had to go through. Sort of. What made you decide to do it, Merkelchen? What are you looking forward to here?
Thank you. Mittens, I think the thing is, having seen as much as I've seen so far, I'm a consensus person. I wake up in the morning, I stand in front of the toilet, and I piss consensus and agreement. So I'm the perfect kind of person to send there. I've got a lot of experience, clearly, covering various aspects of EVE Online. I'm not just a null bearer or something like that, but I think I have a voice that will lend something to the room, so to speak.
I'm sorry.
Oh my God. That was so good. That was so good. I mean, I'm looking forward to just imagining, and I'm gonna brag on all of you here for a minute. I cannot think of a finer and more mature and snarkier and smugger and just more ruthless group of candidates. Some all smiles, some pissing consensus, and just imagining you four plus the judge in a room full of CCP devs and like Sort Dragon. Like,
well, no,
the contrast is just going to be. It's just going to be fantastic.
You know who I feel for here, and I know this guy has been on the show a couple of times, and he's not a bad guy. Just he plays for the wrong alliance. Is Killa B in this situation? Like, he's a kind of a sane person when it comes to like hanging out on the meta show, and he tends to bring some rather truthfulness to the way he talks compared to most of his alliance. And the only ally he's got on there is Sort Dragon. Like, all of the North put Sort Dragon on there with him. Like, what were they thinking?
Well, you know, I think that one of the interesting things about, you know, when I was on the CSM, it was the first really all nullsec CSM, and that was CSM 6, and we had 2 representatives that weren't nullsec. This was back when the CSM had 14 people on it. We had 1 high-sec guy and 1 low-sec guy, and the rest was just pissed off nullsec block representatives because we were sick of CSM 5 telling CCP Grayscale that they could totally remove jump bridges and it would be fine. And one of the things that we found is representatives from nullsec tend to be on the same side regardless of what their affiliation is in the game. Because whether you're in PL or whether you're in NC. Or whether you're in Goonswarm, FozzieSoft sucks the same way, for example. So we found in CSM 6 that oftentimes, you know, Celine and Elise Randolph and I would all end up in agreement about the issues of the day. However, for a good question about that is, let's hand things over to Aerith and Anominate. I mean, you guys have been on the CSM now for, this is going to be your 3rd term. How do you guys, and I don't care which one of you answers first, how do you guys see this election in the context of the returning members and what you expect going forward?
Well, we had a good group the last time around, and everybody who ran again made it back on. I was able to talk to Kilby a little bit on one of his streams, and I'm looking forward to working with him. I think he is an ally of ours. You know, maybe not in game, but we basically want the same thing out of the game. We want a healthy EVE with ships blowing up.
I mean, in general, I agree. I think we can work with pretty much anyone that's already been on, and then the people coming in sort of ingratiate themselves into that culture already. So I think we'll have a really productive CSM. But at a meta and strategic level, this is just utter domination and the humiliation of the rest of Null. Just saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. How did this happen? Yeah, let's ask the 64. Like, we're great at voting, right? We told everybody here is the state ballot, and everybody please exercise their freedom to vote exactly the way that we tell you to, and by and large people did. How did we get here?
I can tell you how we got here from behind closed doors. From information I have about Pandemic Horde, GOTG, and the North itself, like just pretty much the whole North, they only put 3 candidates forward on all their ballots. Their broadcasts, their posts, or everything had, okay, you're voting for these 3. These are the 3 we want to win. Vote for these 3. They didn't have like a 1 through 10. They didn't have a candidate 6 and 7.
It's a larger issue.
All their votes went to 3 people.
We recognize that the CSM is important and that it matters that we get people on who are able to do it and who are able to contribute to it. Meanwhile, the rest of the galaxy mostly doesn't care. Like, they're straight up telling their people, we don't care about the CSM, we don't care what you do. Horde can't even find somebody competent enough to follow the instructions to register. Like, and yeah, like Boat said, they're putting 1 person, 2 people. They're not planning for anything deeper than that. And, you know, that's how hundreds of votes got thrown away by people who just voted for 1 person.
Well, you know, the funny thing is about that, looking at the forums and watching everybody complain about how many votes all of us got, how many seats the Imperium got. You've got half the folks on the forums are arguing, oh, the CSM doesn't do anything, it doesn't matter. But the minute that we take over and get more than 5 slots, they start freaking, oh my God, the Goons took over everything, it's the worst thing in the world. Which is, either it's useless and you don't care, or it matters, then why aren't you running people? I mean, that's the bottom line.
I think it goes deeper than that. They don't have the people to run. This is sort of the cult of personality problem. Like, we have lots of larger-than-life personalities within our organization and organizations. They don't. They don't really have. They have a Killa B, but they don't have. You know, would they rally behind Headliner? Nah, I doubt it. Like, they don't have personalities that rise above it.
Hell, even of the 10 people on our list, every one of those are personalities. Moderator's a great personality, even though he didn't get elected. Sullen Decimus is a personality. People know him really well. So it's not like that's an interesting point. I don't know of anyone outside of Killa B that has any kind of value over there. I mean, guess Gobbins, but Gobbins, we've talked about this with him before, is that he's really busy in real life. Like, he does, he's an IRL doctor, he does a lot of conferencing. He said he had never had time, he told us this in Vegas, that he could just never run for the CSM. But he could get elected if he ever wanted to. And they just don't have those kind of people to do it. They don't have, like, a motivation, which is I don't get. They want the game to be balanced for them, and they really get upset at CCP and go all over Reddit and get upset, but then they don't ever put someone forward to get it changed.
Well, they just don't want nefarious things happening. They have a belief that the more goons there are in the CSM, the more nefariousness can happen, and that we will have an advantage over them somehow, or we'll steal the game in such a way that we'll have an advantage or they'll have a disadvantage. And they just don't understand how the CSM works, so they have the whole tinfoil hat problem.
That is one of the things that's curious about this. If they had an actual understanding of how like nefarious social manipulation actually works, right? If they had sales training, or if they had political experience, or if they just had experience getting out of the house, going to a club, and observing people who are charismatic, you don't need 5 guys in order to rig or to manipulate or to influence an organization. I mean, it helps that we are sending a professional lobbyist this time. That's pretty cool, right? I mean, however, it's actually a harder job. I think that, I didn't expect us to get 5 people from the Imperium on. And if anything, this makes it harder for us to engage in a manipulation of any kind, because we have so much overt representation that it will actually... Yeah, people will have their guard up. They'll be watching us. They'll be, just in many ways, it can be a lot easier to be just like one guy whispering in an ear, or being like the friendly goon, as opposed to having like 5 people on the council.
Well, and that too, and I see it as another thing with Sort being there, and not to say that Sort hasn't worked well with you guys before, but you could see Sort being someone they throw under a bus to leak a whole bunch of shit if they feel it's nefarious. If they feel we're trying to game the system, they'll be like, okay, Sort, take one for the team, leak the shit out of this, and we'll expose them, right? And someone brought this up last night, and I think it was Zenuria that was on the Open Com show. He said it's you could tell a comparative to this between the elections that happened this past 2 years ago in the U.S. is a lot of people on Reddit and a lot of people in EVE say that they don't want goons to own the CSM, but then they don't go out and vote. Oh, I don't want them to be in charge, but I have 10 accounts. I just didn't use them to vote. I didn't care to vote.
And the other alliances didn't put up credible candidates. They didn't put up candidates. If you're not going to run anybody, then you can't complain when the other guys do and they win. I mean, that's just the bottom line. I mean, the other thing that drives me crazy about this is the whole idea. Oh, there are too many goons. We got to change the way the CSM is structured so that there aren't that many goons on it. Okay. If the Republicans win the House and the Senate, do we change the way the House is formulated so they can't win that many seats? No.
Well, and that's a good point, because I don't think it can be changed. I don't think there's a system they can do now. It's kind of like Oracle mining. They keep trying to nerf Oracle mining or super ratting in a way that will make it so that we cannot dominate the numbers. And we'll get to that later, how we're still dominating. But that's the thing. You can't change the voting system. Someone said, well, how about we just make it 1 candidate per alliance? Well, then there's 10 good alliances, like they have with the alliance tournament.
I mean, they technically already, this is the thing. They have already changed the CSM voting once, right? They used to have a system which was a direct vote. You vote for a certain number of candidates, the votes go into a pile, and that's it. And they implemented the single transferable vote system precisely because the nullsec blocks got together and did what null blocks did. Not just goons, but all of us got together to ensure that there would never be another CSM 5 where a bunch of random high-sec puppies get there and tell CCP to remove jump bridges. So they changed the system once. I don't know if they're going to change the system again. I doubt it. I think it'll depend upon whether they're happy with the quality of the representatives. Like if this CSM has a good engagement level with CCP, then there won't be a problem. If it's a contentious situation, like we also saw CCP change the rules just a couple of CSMs ago, where the infamous Falcon and Lilu no Scions rule, they decided to implement a rule specifically to try to prevent Scion Kumitomo from being the lawfully, rightfully elected representative of Goonswarm. So we never know. We just sort of have to see what they're going to do.
one of the complaints that you keep seeing on like Reddit is, well, the CSM should represent the population of the game, and it can't and will never do that. The CSM represents the population of people voting for CSM, and what we're seeing right now is a fairly good representation of the people who are voting for CSM.
Right. I don't think you'll ever see a valid CSM representation of all of EVE until you make it so random high-sec puppy sees it pop up on his in-game screen and can vote for him in-game, right? Until they put that in, you're never going to see an equal representation, because all the people in high-sec who just log in, go about doing high-sec missions, don't even know 0-0 really exists because they never leave high-sec. Marco chat slides out. That's great. You never see them leave high-sec. They're never going to vote in the CSM. Like, they're not going to care. They're not concerned with X capital ship being changed or X Titan being changed. What they care about is if the level 4 mining gets adjusted, and that's never really going to get adjusted. So they're not going to give a crap. They're just going to log in, play the game, and then log out. Like, you'll never see those votes. And that could be tens of thousands of people out of the 40,000 logged in every day or in high-sec doing whatever.
Well, I got a question here, which is, and I don't really care which one of you wants to answer this first, but like, what was the most surprising thing for any of you guys running this time as your candidate experiences, or just were there aspects about the result besides, hey, we won all these seats? What was unusual or surprising as part of the experience?
I was not supposed to get back on.
That's true. You weren't. We explicitly, like in Goonswarm, it's sort of on me to end up choosing who goes every year, and Merkelchen wanted to run, and so we had this thing where, normally speaking, people, like, CSM is almost like a punishment duty. It's really, it's not a happy, fun, oh, you get to go to Iceland and it's wonderful and so much fun. It's, you go to Iceland on a crappy time of the year and you're jammed in a conference room with a bunch of smelly nerds and you talk about spaceships for 8 hours a day, and it's not cool. But this time around we had multiple people wanted to go, so Nominate was like, whatever, I'll go, I'll put myself on as number 3, and then we expected that we would only get 2 candidates on, but you get to go back to Iceland.
Yeah, I don't know how you could look forward to it. I mean, I loved Iceland when it was FanFest, and that's when all the devs are drunk and having fun. I don't understand how it would be fun if the devs are having to be serious and really think and look at what you're saying and doing as a serious thing, because what you say while you're there could really affect the game for the next year.
It is a beautiful country, and I would highly recommend that going there in the summer. Don't go there in January.
Yeah, I had a November CSM trip, and that was the thing. Brisk, what you got?
I think the other thing, at least in that regard, is like, it's not the joke everybody made. Oh, you got a free trip to Iceland. I go to Iceland whenever I want. This is work. The whole idea is we're supposed to go there to help fix things. So if that's what it's there for, then yeah, I'm used to business travel. I go to places all over the world. I go to hotels all the time. What do? I stay in my hotel for 5 minutes. I go down to a meeting for 10 hours. Then I go back to the hotel. Then I go to the airport. Great. I just saw X country, X place. That's not how it works.
My work trips pay for food, though.
Yeah, that's about the only thing. You get a nice dinner out of it every once in a while.
Oh yeah, and they don't pay for the food while you're there, do they?
No, and eating in Iceland is incredibly expensive.
Yeah, it's about $1,000. Like, every time I've been, I've spent it consistently at least $1,000 for the week.
It does surprise me that there are still puppies who are like, oh, you're just doing it for a free trip to Iceland. And it's like, motherfuckers, have you been to Iceland? Like, at any other time other than high summer, if you're going on like a clubbing or a nature rampage, it ain't great. Like, there's a reason why CCP has such a churn and retention problem at the employee level for the non-Icelandic staff. It's because, it is a barren, desolate rock in the North Atlantic surrounded by fart water, and it's raining, snowing, sleeting, and otherwise just trying to be crap.
Or occasionally you get a volcano and you can't breathe for a week.
Or there's a volcano and you can't fly out. That has actually happened. So yeah.
I think what it is, and to be a little bit of a dick, I guess, there are a fair number of people who are never able to go anywhere for any reason. So even a crappy trip to Iceland in the dead of night sounds like something fun.
Yeah,
Hey
I mean,
guys,
oh, sorry.
do they have domestic beef in Iceland?
No.
No, they don't. They have
No,
to.
that's imported.
They
They have
have
domestic.
Horse, though.
They've got
I-
Yeah,
hold
we
on,
have
hold
yeah.
on.
lamb. You can buy
They have
lamb.
domestic fermented shark though, and you'll really enjoy that.
You wanna
I think.
I am not
You want to
eating-
stick to the lamb. The lamb is actually very good.
Yeah, the lamb is fantastic. The horse is pretty good too. Like if you go to the Grill Market, which is like the big fancy steak place, you can eat whale. Whale is delicious. One of the nice things about an Iceland trip at some point is that you do get to eat a shitload of endangered species. And if you say that in front of Icelanders, they get angry because they'll point out that it's manky whale or whatever they're called, and that it's not actually endangered and it's perfectly okay. But if you post on Facebook that you're eating whale, your vegetarian friends will freak the fuck out. It's glorious.
My favorite was the puffin.
Puffin is pretty good. I think it's a little bit gamey, but the fact that you're getting to say that you're eating a puffin and then bring somebody like a stuffed puffin, like a little stuffed animal home, and like, yeah, here you go. I ate that. It was pretty cool. You should try
Well,
it.
it's more
Yeah.
the
Here's-
Did you hear that? They catch it with a net. They can't even shoot it.
Really? Well, I guess if you shot a puffin, it would like explode.
Yeah, there wouldn't be much left to eat.
Chat is not delayed. We could see it as far as it soon as it pops up. Here's my question though. So with this many 0 people on the CSM, because if I do remember correctly, number 11, just on the edge of making it, was a wormhole guy. What does that say about the rest of EVE that they can't even manage to get one candidate?
Well, I actually want to start by saying that just because we're all from nullsec doesn't mean that all we care about is nullsec. Like on the last CSM, there were a number of things that the CSM pretty much agreed were like should have been top priorities. And what was there? It's like the first 3 things were all HiSec related.
Yeah, like I would say the last 2 CSMs have been lobbying more for HiSec than the probably previous 3 or 4.
I mean, at this point, like, that is one of the challenges. Is like a lot of times in a CSM perspective, you don't necessarily want CCP to touch things in nullsec because, especially in the aftermath of like FozzieSaw, it's like, oh god, don't fuck this up. Aiming for a better HiSec experience, aiming for a more vibrant PvE experience. And I spent more time talking about how I wanted better PvE in EVE than I spent talking about nullsec issues when I was on CSM 6, because from a outside of nullsec perspective, you want to have a healthy game that has a solid PvE component. That was the most boring aspect of EVE, still is, and you really have to look out for the health of the game, because if the game dies, nullsec is fucked anyway.
Yeah,
And that's the other thing that I think a lot of these guys that are complaining and concerned about don't understand is we all love this game. We play this game all the time. We go on shows, we read blogs, we go on podcasts, we watch all kinds of EVE-related stuff. We play the game all the time. We wouldn't be doing this if we wanted to blow it up. So at the end of the day, we have to represent everybody. And if certain areas of the game need fixing, things like Vortex, everybody knows we need to fix the Vortex. And there's a lot of things that are never really going to impact those of us who play primarily in Null that we're going to go out and advocate for because it's the right thing to do and what the game needs. And I've already reached out. I'm trying to reach out to some of the wormhole guys and say, hey, look, I know you have issues. I don't do this as my primary play style, but I spend a lot of time in wormholes. We use them for travel and we do a bunch of stuff, and we like to go mess around with Laserhawks and those types of guys. I want to help. So if you've got issues, bring them to me. We'll present them. That's what all of us can do. Yeah. So I hope that these guys realize that just because we're all nullsec PvP guys or nullsec industry guys, that doesn't mean that we aren't familiar with it or that we're not willing to become familiar with parts of the game that we don't play.
That sounds like a true politician, though, right?
I'm a Goonswarm CSM candidate. All I really care about is Goonswarm. But that our alliance depends on the rest of the game being healthy. Like, we need people to shoot, otherwise why are we even here? If the game dies, we die.
But let me ask very carefully, because Aerith might have a great comment on this. When you walk in that room, Aerith, and they say to you, okay, here's this idea, and you realize it's going to benefit goons, do you just sit there and just smile and go, okay, please go about this? Or do you actually critically look at it and go, well, it's going to be good for us. It's probably going to kill off X, Y, and Z. Does that really come across your mind at all?
Oh, that exact thing has come out of my mouth many times where I'll say, that is great for us, but Deep Null is going to get shafted. Right. And then the other thing I always told CCP is, I will always tell you the truth the first time. But if you make me repeat myself, I'll probably metagame you.
Yeah, that's the reason I bring it up. Stream is that's a rhetorical thing because I've Aerith said this before, where he's even tweeted about this. You'll see Aerith tweet very rarely, but when you see a tweet from his, and you got to make sure you follow him to notice this. It's him calling CCP out because it's like, hey, we warned you, you did this thing. Now we're going to abuse it, and we're going to show you why it's broken, even though we told you and you told us it was fine. Here's why it's broken, and now it's broken.
That's one of the primary functions of the CSM in many ways, is to, you know, I said the canary in the mineshaft thing earlier, and that's a great example of that function, is basically when you have a CCP grayscale saying, hey guys, the player base is totally cool with removing jump bridges, the job of the CSM, if it's functioning process properly, is to say, no, you might have released a dev blog saying the CSM is okay with something, which CCP in the past has done during the dark days of the Falcon Lilu anti-Scion CSM a few years ago. This was a thing. Publishing a dev blog saying the CSM was cool with something, and then it's the job of the CSM to say, don't put our names on this. We did not approve this. You are going against our explicit advice and counsel. This is bad for the game. And that lets the player base as a whole know that CCP is up to something that is contrary to the desires of their representatives.
I mean, a big example.
And when that happens, usually the CSM as a whole is united. Like you don't really see like dissident CSMs. It's like it instantly the CSM closes ranks when CCP tries to take advantage of their representation.
I'll give you two examples.
Let's hear it, Eric.
We gave them vociferous feedback about Rorquals, and we're like, don't do panic, don't do this, you can't tank this much, we're going to spam them, and we did. And we did the same thing I did personally over and over with Lyrican about Citadels. I was like, this is going to be cancerous, we're going to spam these. And I don't think they realized the depths of which we would do so.
Now, I know you two are still under NDA because you have been on the CSM and going forward, but I do want to ask an opinion question, and this is something that has came out. 5, 6, 7 people have brought this up to me now about they wanting to change ratting to be a tiered thing. So if you're ratting the super carrier and you kill a ship, it may not pay out as well as if you did it in VNI. Is that something that would be good for the game or bad for the game? Not without breaking NDA, of course.
You're just asking my personal opinion.
Yeah, your opinion. Yeah. What do you think?
That's just bad for the game. That's just dumb.
Okay.
I think that the focus needs to be less on the amount of ISK being earned from it and more about how engaging it is. I think the Abyssal Dead Space stuff is actually a good move starting in that direction as far as improving the overall quality of EVE PvE. But just focusing on how it turns into income is kind of missing the point.
Yeah.
And even then, if you're talking about income and they're concerned about inflation, I mean, the reality is you need more sinks. And I think the Abyssal Dead Space has been a great ISK sink. I mean, we've already lost trillions of ISK worth of ships in there in like a week. So that's a good thing. But you know, nerfing or setting up a tiered system for ship sizes, you know, all that does is punish the guys that have spent their time getting into super carrier so that they can rat more efficient.
Yeah. I think that kills super cap uses instantly if that happens. That's why I was curious. And speaking to the Abyssal thing, I took a fleet out yesterday, and a guy went into a level 5 with a really nice ship, and we sat there off of Keepstar mittens and killed it. It was from test. He was in there 19 minutes, and it was just kind of like, does he self-destruct the ship or try to make it out? And he came out and just like, and locally just put F, and it was a 1.3 billion-ish Vagabond.
That is perfect. We talked about doing that on
we were just roaming around. But finding those things is amazing, especially when people put them in places you can find them.
I was pretty skeptical about that, but that actually also sounds like a potentially good answer to the problem of ratters being uncatchable.
Yeah.
I want to actually move on to the next topic. Which is we should go over discussing PvE. This is a good opportunity to segue in a very subtle way into the discussion of the monthly economic report.
And
what the fuck?
It's we're just iterating. I want to kind of announce this. I've announced this internally.
Please go ahead.
About 60 days, 60, 90 days, we're going to start moving to phase 5 of our overall economic plan. So you'll see the market conditions moving around as changing here in the near future. So that should be fun, especially around Moongu. And obviously this economic report is just building on what we've been building on for a couple years now. no new. We're starting to hit some bottlenecks and how we're organized and what features we have available to us and what investments we've already made in Delve. But we're going to be able to push past some of these.
What actually? I mean, for people who haven't seen the monthly economic report, I'd like to get an overview of what happened, because I know we were talking about this before the show went on, that CCP did something unusual for this
they've
month's
now changed
NAR.
it. So when it first came out, that first few hours, I went scouring through it because, of course, we're going to talk about it on the show. It came out 4 days ago. It didn't have these bar graphs for mining value and NPC bounty value. All it had was the region and how much the number was. And I thought that was kind of strange, because it's kind of like, okay, CCP finally realized that they stopped putting the bar graph up. It won't look as detrimental to the rest of the game. And then I found today that they have adjusted it. They've edited it as of today and have included the new bar graph. So I've linked them in chat. But as
How long
always,
have we been ahead of the Forge for production value? Has that been a recurring thing, or is that new?
It's semi new. It's like in the last couple of reports. Yeah.
This
So-
report, though, this is the first time we've been that far ahead. We were
Yeah,
really
we really
close
blew it
last
away.
month. This month we blew it away by almost. It's right around 9 trillion or 9 billion. I think it's 9 trillion-esque. Is how bad we blew it away. Yeah. Last month it was a lot closer. I'm gonna get that right now for you. But yeah, it's disgusting.
I was sad to see how Aquarius dropped. We were number 2 behind Delve last time, but and it was deployed, so we couldn't send out our locust fleets like we liked.
Yeah, that we are. I agree. For people who are mentioning this on the chat, we have seen some like buffering issues. We think it's actually on Twitch's end.
Yeah, I'm getting constantly green, so I don't know what's happening. It very rarely drops frames, and it's not my internet. So
Yeah, I'm watching this on Skype, and when Boat's computer fucks up, it like sort of makes my screen view twitch, as it were. So we're good there. The interesting thing, I don't really know if we want to talk about it. We talked about it on the fireside earlier today, but I don't know, Aerith, do you think we should go into the grand push for our next 5-year plan for what we're doing with our big toys, or do we want to just stick to the MER stuff?
We can do both. The big toys you're referring to, this Slate Supers and Titans, or
Yep.
what? Yeah, I think we should absolutely talk about it.
Yeah, so this is actually, I mean, it's pretty big news for the Imperium as a whole. We announced today a plan for which originally came to us from Villy, so credit where it's due. I think some of our supercap theorists have bounced around this idea, but really Villy was talking to me about this a while back as something, and we're making it happen. We're pushing everybody in the Imperium who has a shield or an armor super Titan to cross the streams and get a matching super or Titan on the other side of the aisle. So if you have a shield super, get an armor super, and the fax machines to support both. And we are going to be taking these toys on the road. The idea is that we will keep our armor supers or our shield supers at home in Delve, and then we will start deploying the other half of the super capital fleet. So all shield or all armor will go on foreign deployments. Because right now in the nullsec meta, everybody stays at home with their supers and doesn't move them, as opposed to splitting them in two and then having a functionally
Shield Nix, baby. Shield Nix.
I'm just excited to
so-
get to have it now. This is going to be fun.
Yeah, so I did find this link, Mittens. As of February, we were behind the Forge just slightly. April, we had passed the Forge, and now in May, we've blown that Forge away.
Now the Forge looks really small.
Yeah,
It's,
2
it's
reports
tricky.
ago. Yeah. So the interesting thing about this report, since it's been generated, is the first time in EAT's history where the posturing and the bloviating of politicians, right, not autocrats, sorry, Mittens, it can be proven. Like it's hey, if you get into a super capital draw with us, you're screwed. If you beat us 2-1, you're screwed. Like, we can show you the metrics.
We've got the money.
We've got the money in the production. We can replace them.
Here's
Aerith.
my... Oh, sorry, go
I'm
ahead,
sorry,
Mark.
bud. Aerith, Papa, can you tell us who, not yourself, was the brilliant person that came up with this economic plan?
Uh-huh. Everybody knows it's me already. I've talked about it a lot on the show. Yes, I'm very smug about that, but it enables our military now to go do things where it's like, in the past, I would have freaked out, oh, you're going to drop supers, and it would have been like a heart attack moment, right? Now it's going to be like, well, I haven't dropped supers yet.
And this is an interesting thing here. When did we start Locust Fleet in Quarius? Was that in March?
feel like it's
I
a
think
little
so.
Because that would explain the gigantic leap in production of Delve. Because February, April, it was close there, and all of a sudden, then April, May, it just skyrockets.
Because no, that was because of the moon sale, the moon landing, and everything going on.
Oh, okay. But I mean, okay. So here's the thing. So you say, someone points out 2 Titans in every hangar and a Nyx in every sanctum, but that's the point where it's gotten where occasionally you'll see a goon say, "Well, I've got my backup avatar in the Keepstar, and I just camp a gate with this one," and people are like, "Wait, you have 2?" And they don't even understand the concept of having 1. I mean, look at Pandemic Horde is starting to get somewhat of a super fleet. I think they're up to like 30, 40 super carriers they use once in a while. But even those guys, they don't have replacements. And I don't even think their alliance could really care to replace them.
Well, think about it this way. All the census, right? The census shows that half our membership, roughly, can afford a Titan. Of all our people. And you can see how many people we have active based on how many just voted. So that's a very scary thing.
That's an interesting point. We've got a couple questions here in chat. One of which is, what is a locust fleet? So a locust fleet is the Imperium's method of expanding to regions that we don't actually directly control with SOV. A locust fleet is when we temporarily move our super capital umbrella, which will be a lot easier from a certain perspective if we split shield and armored supers, such that we can have 2 locust fleets in 2 different regions simultaneously. That should be fun. It's not usually necessary, though. We time all of the moon fracs to come out in a given region simultaneously, and then we move the super capital umbrella, and you see these pictures occasionally of like a fleet of more than 200 Rorquals. That is a locust fleet. We have, within a space of like 3 or 4 hours, all of the moons come out. We move 200 Rorquals there. We move the super capital umbrella, and we mine out an entire region's worth of moons in a matter of hours.
We didn't talk about
go away for a month.
We didn't talk about this on the last Meta show. When was our last locust fleet? Was that the last Sunday? Because 350 stealth bombers tried to hit our locust fleet and got obliterated by a ball of Hodreds and Titans.
Jay points out that I'm incorrect, and that actually already on the Locust fleets we leave half of our supers behind. So we've already been, from a certain perspective, Locust fleets have been practiced for our new system of super cap projection.
Yeah. You have 300 Rorquals, 250 supers covering a cleaning of a region, and then we just go about what's after that. But that's the interesting thing is that they've tried to hit it. And the best way to hit it, obviously, the best way to kill a lot of Rorquals like that is stealth bombers. They do a lot of damage. They're very cheap. But I think they threw away over 350. I think it was credit to Jay Maziness and Lux Libertas for obliterating those. They just... I think the CO2 fleet lost a full fleet. 250. It didn't kill a single ship. Like, they didn't even kill tacklers. Like, it was ridiculous. Apparently it was a claw fleet, some supers, and dreads. Yeah, I don't think the Titans ever jumped in. But still, the point is, it's a good thing because it makes everyone lots of money. Then moving forward, the thing about this monthly economic report is that are we at a point, Aerith, where there's nothing they can change in the game that's really going to fix this aspect of how much money we're making? Is there really nothing that can be done to like balance it out?
Not without a full-scale change of how mechanics work. There's some things that are pretty clearly on the horizon they're going to have to address, like some of the mineral prices, like Mega being less than Zed and Parite being less than Trid and Deep No. But I don't think it's worthwhile changing the system and flipping it on its head now. People are just starting to kind of build in the system. We're just 2 years ahead. Okay. That's all.
I got a new link in chat. One of our wonderful streamers, Eric Asimak, who does great graphs, just made us a graph that shows all of Delve's last 5 months of production and the Forge's last 5 months of production, and a beautiful bar graph. So you can see just how much we've spiked up in the last 5 months.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's
well, we're going to have to make those graphs
ridiculous.
Go bigger because we're going to be doubling the size of our super capital fleet.
Yeah, we're going to have the tall thing. I mean, for those that don't know, I think the going rate right now on a Titan is 47 billion. To give you an idea, and that's another thing. Here's another thing I think is a big deal, and maybe Aerith or anyone here that buys Titans or something can comment on this. Our competition in terms of guys up north, let's just say a guy in Horde, he's not going to get a Titan at the same price we are. He's going to have to go buy it at a Keepstar in low-sec for 90 billion ISK, already pre-made, and he's going to have to pay the premium and then move it. We're buying it direct from the seller, kind of like Direct Mattress Farm. But you know what? We're buying it direct from the seller, so we're getting it at half price. We're getting it at mineral cost, and if you know the guy really well, that's it. You're not having to pay a premium. You're not having to pay for where it's located. Like, this is a vastly, like, we're paying half the price while making double the numbers.
Well, the other side of that's true as well. Like, their ISK per hour generation in their space is far lower than they would experience in Delve. So our people make money faster and they pay less for commodities.
Right, yeah, so doubling the income, right? And paying half the price.
It's actually becoming something of a problem in that the price gap is so large that it's cheaper for them to come down to Delve, get a character into the Alliance, buy a super, and then just asset safety it out.
Well,
and just eat that cost.
It's even cheaper than that because we've seen people, I've seen at least one instance of this, I can only know for one for sure, where the guy joined, Rorqual mined for 6 months, then went home with all the money he made from that and his new super, and that's where he made his money, and he's just like, goodbye.
The fucked up thing about this is it does sound like, listening to the production in Delve and all this when we talk about this on the Meta Show, which we do pretty much once a month whenever an MER is released, it does kind of remind me of an infomercial, right? Like, come down to Delve. It's
exactly.
free real estate. That's something that's...
Well, it's like you hear for like the, what's it
John
called,
Hartley.
Mattress Farm, where it's like direct from the buyer. It's like, that's the feeling you get with Delve. It's the
Get
same...
your Titans direct. Come to Delve,
Right,
the land of free super caps.
The state
them up at the
provides.
factory, cheaper that way.
Right, direct from the factory.
We're kind of doing this farm to table thing that's hot right now. You know, fertilizer.
Yeah, there you go.
Supers vegan. They're doing like the Walmart version of this. It's kind of like socioeconomic warfare. It's, I don't know, it feels unclean. I'm glad that we do it the way that we do it. I feel like that's the right way. And we provide our pilots this unbelievable opportunity where these tools that are out there that are super cool to have, super cool to fly, super cool to field, are like 75% easier for you to achieve than for someone else in EVE Online. So why would you make that process more difficult for yourself?
Well, Marco Chance here is a prime example of this. Karma Fleet's education programs, as a new person coming in, a newbie, and I say this literal new character who has never played EVE Online, who skill injects himself into a Titan, will probably have more knowledge how to fly that Titan in the first month than a Rifter of a Goon 10 years ago would know about Rifters. Like, it's ridiculous just the knowledge that's out there and the education. I don't think anyone else in EVE has this. Maybe Test. PL and NC are old people.
Distressed, farm-to-table, locally sourced super caps, only in Delve. GMO
We have
free.
100% GMO free, fully organic, free range avatars for sale.
No, that's not avatars. It's the Molochs. They're grown in
Molochs
Delve. Grown and raised in Delve.
Oh my god. All right, well, with that, we should segue to making fun of somebody besides puppies. briefly. Let's make fun of some Star Citizen puppies.
Well, I want to make fun of Skill Yourself first, because they achieved something that I don't think's ever been done in EVE. So we're going to move on to that, and we're not going to do a fancy transition because we don't need to. So for those of you that didn't know, this week we had a downtime of about 4 hours. The game shit itself. Well, why did it shit itself? Skill Yourself was the first alliance in EVE to unanchor a faction Fortizar. We all know that it was possible to do so, but it takes 7 days, so we knew after patch day it was going to take a while. Well, they're the first ones to do it. They unanchored it, and as soon as they unanchored it, it crashed the game. But not only did it crash the game, because we all know the game crashed, it also took all of EVE's universe, the entire, I guess, file or database, whatever you want to call it, and stuck it in asset safety in that station. So, Jita 44 was in a station somewhere in an item folder, and they had to go back and unpack it all. And so a lot of jokes were made. One of my favorite was, imagine waking up to your asset saving, having Jita 44, the station, as your asset, and just moved it to trash, and there goes Jita. You know?
Nothing of value was lost.
Exactly. Also, I don't know how that's... I mean, that reminds me of Budai and I. Like, that's ridiculous. How the fuck does all of EVE, literally the entire universe, get moved to asset safety? I don't know how, but it happens. Which, I kind of called this a couple weeks ago, but if you remember, I said something was going to break with these faction citadels and the whole mass asset safety thing, but, well, that's another thing. And then Thursday, the first faction Fortizar has died. Skill Yourself has been sweeping up the drone lands, clearing them out, unanchoring all their faction Fortizars, and to make as much money as possible. And then I believe Skill Yourself and Snuffed Out killed the first one, followed by Test Alliance. Just today they killed one. Test Alliance.
We're going into subs only mode here, guys. So if you have questions for the CSM candidates, and you're one of the cool kids, because the people who are not subscribing to the channel get no voice in the Q&A because
right, if you,
we're super democratic.
If you're not a concierge level subscriber to the Meta Show, you're not going to be allowed to speak for the next little bit. And that's a great segue right into our next topic. And I want to get definitely
making fun of Star Citizen.
Definitely a nominate who just subscribed for 35 months. Thank you, and all of our other previous subscribers. I've been thanking you in chat. Kotaku wrote a great piece, and Kotaku does very rarely do this, but they did write a great piece about Star Citizen EVE Online Slapfight. So to lay the groundwork for this started when Star Citizen announced at E3 that they were releasing a new ship called the Vulture, which just so happens to look exactly like the Venture from EVE Online, even where the cockpit's located, the lasers, every little bit. They also did an E3 video, which the background star, Nebula, was an exact image copy of the Amencia Nebula in EVE Online. So both those things were straight stolen from EVE. Now, EVE Online has a good PR team, at least recently, what's left of it. And they took the gracious side. They said, you know, flattery is the best form of imitation. Thank you for taking our design. We think it's great. To which Chris Roberts replied with, well, actually, you stole it from us 20 years ago because we made it first. Deal with it.
Did Chris Roberts directly respond?
It was the whoever runs the Star Citizen like Twitter account. But a lot of people said it was Chris Roberts himself that handles that. So, yeah.
Well, it used to be that Ben Lesnick guy, but then they figured out something was wrong with him and they got rid of him. But wow, that's the thing. I want to sort of pile on here and say that CCP's PR team has expanded from what we can see. It's now a couple of dudes, and they've been really doing an excellent job of helping line up interviews with INN, with CCP devs on a lot of ways. And so I actually have, for the first time in a while, I have really nothing but good things to say about what CCP Grindel and crew have.
Yeah, CCP did a great job with this. They didn't get into a slap fight over this. They didn't say, okay, we're going after them. But Star Citizen's fan base are fucking nuts. I thought there's some EVE people I've encountered in my day in the 11 years I've done with this, where I've encountered some screwballs, but they've taken screwball and turned it up to the factor of 10. And I give you the best example of this right here. This guy posted, I don't even know what you want to call this, but he honestly tries to explain why Star Citizen is just better than EVE and we're just jealous. Also, a guy who is a concierge level Star Citizen man, backer, occasional EVE player, has informed us we need to stop going after Star Citizen because they could be no fault here. For those that don't know, as I learned just last night, concierge level is
I was about to say, what is that?
That's at least $1,000 donated to a game that's not even scheduled for release. It is still in pre-alpha, like back 8 years pre-alpha. It's been in design forever. A lot of people say the game has turned into nothing but a religion. I'll get everyone's comment about this, but it's nuts. Like, you're paying thousands of dollars, in some cases tens of thousands of dollars, for a game that probably has no sign of coming out anytime soon.
Well, it frustrates me because I'm a huge Chris Roberts fan. I grew up playing Wing Commander. I love it. I want a new Wing Commander. I wish they would just take the old games and just, put them in a new engine. I started following Star Citizen in 2012, and I am not concierge level. I'm about $80 away from it because I give them money every once in a while because I want to see the game come out. But the fact is, anybody that looks, and Mittens, you and I are lawyers. I'm not a patent attorney, but I have a lot of friends who are. I look at something like that, and I'm like, guys, that's flat out plagiarism. I don't care whether you invent. You may have created a model that looks like that 20 years ago, but the fact is, there's an active game that has this in it, and it looks the same. And any of these guys trying to argue that it's different, That's just BS.
Chris,
Don't,
let me ask
don't,
you
don't even try to argue with us that the thing isn't the same. If they had come over and said, "Hey, yeah, well, you know what, we're going to spend $120 on a venture," that's fine. They want to do that, I don't care. You want to print money and pull it out of your butt and hand it to these guys, go ahead. But
From a
don't come in here and tell us
confusion
that's not the
perspective?
same shit. Come on.
Yeah, like it would fail even a
Bert.
basic test for trademark.
So
Merkelton, you were about to
Bert,
say
yeah, you were
something.
about
What
to
do you
say
got?
something.
I was curious at what point it was that Bricks decided he was going to betray EVE Online and start doing this for Star Citizen.
It was 2012 when I was playing with my friends, and they said, "Hey, did you see? There's going to be a new Wing Commander game." I'm like, "What? Really?" Yeah, that was 6 years ago.
Yeah, well,
A lot of us actually, when Star Citizen first was presenting itself, there was a pretty big goon group that eventually went hostile to Chris Roberts, but it was called, FLJK, and it was like this big Kilrathi, the Goon Rathi group.
yeah, I was excited for that.
Yeah, like
Awesome.
I threw some money in Star Citizen back in the day. I bought like a Super Hornet or something that, in context now, looks ridiculous because like, wow, I spent $170 on a game that sort of exists. I mean, there is like an empty. Brisk, have you actually like tried Star Citizen recently? Like, I haven't installed it in years.
I have. I've played it. I've got one of these crazy joysticks that I was using for Evalkyrie. So I've got like the Warthog with the thrust and all that other kind of crap. And you log in and you play it. It's boring. There's nothing to do. You can go into this Arena Commander thing and you can play like waves, and it's like the old in the first Wing Commander there was like a simulator. It's kind of like that. And then they have like a new thing where you can run around and shoot guns, and it's kind of like an attempted some kind of a first-person shooter, but it doesn't work very well, and there's no plot, and it looks nice, and I can see what they're trying to do, and they're being very ambitious, and that's great, but you don't have a finished game, and you're ripping other people off. So the only subreddit I've seen that's worse than theirs is like the Star Trek Discovery one, because that show's so freaking awful that the fans of it get very defensive, but they just got to stop. The game is not out, and it's not going to be out anytime soon.
Brisk, which one do you hate more? Star Trek Discovery Reddit or high-sec warfare mechanics?
That's a good question. I think at least the person that created high-sec was not completely stupid, and I can't say the same thing for Star Trek Discovery. So I guess I would have to give it that.
Wow. Okay. So let me give some perspective on how much money people are willing to spend for this Venture remake. The Venture, if you were to RMT a Venture, would cost you 0.25 pennies. So not even a penny. It would cost you a fourth of a penny. And the Vulture from Star Citizen cost $120. So that's what you're paying for to get a ship that you can just go and EVE Online and play for free. Like, I'll just hand you one. Here, come try it out.
Look, like, it's very simple. If you've ever given a single dollar to Star Citizen or any game that wasn't a finished game, you're an idiot and you're not a real gamer.
Well, I don't know about that. No, hold on. There's some games that weren't finished that were great gimmicks that throwing $20 at it were fine. H1Z1. Great gimmick, worth the $20. The hundreds of goons we played with and did the gimmicks.
It was playable.
Right.
That was an actual game, yeah.
Well, yeah.
BattleTech, like pre-ordering BattleTech, like a Kickstarter like that, if you've got a company that has a good record of actually delivering. Yeah,
Right.
I did that too. Like I threw down for BattleTech.
BattleTech was amazing.
That worked, but Harebrained Schemes had a record of publishing games based upon Kickstarters successfully.
I read an article, and it was I think it was done by either Vice or someone else, but it was maybe it was one of those companies that do like 15-page articles that it's really well done, where they basically summed up what Chris Roberts is doing with this, and not to say that Star Citizen may never come out, but it's viewed as the biggest Ponzi scheme to ever hit gaming, because it seems like more and more he makes more stretch goals, throw more money at it, with less and less promise of finishment, right? It's like he's taking the money that you're throwing at him for this Vulture and using it towards stuff that he should have paid for 4 or 5 years ago. And a lot of developers commented in this article saying, look, there's no money. We had $80 million. It's gone. Where the hell did it go? So
There's been magazine articles.
The time that they have spent on this game, technology has advanced so far compared to where they started. I mean, you're going to have video cards are going to be obsolete that were created before when this game had not been out. that are going to be obsolete by the time it comes out. I mean, I don't know how do you develop a game when your base minimum system requirements is going to change because the entire computer system has changed in 5 or 6 years.
I am shocked.
Right.
Yeah, I am continually shocked that companies. I mean, CCP is guilty of this exact same crime. Well, it's not a crime, but it's just idiotic. With Dust 514. Well, actually, I should say World of Darkness, because they did license the Unreal Engine for Dust 514
Right.
and Incarna. Like, when you're making a game, why did Star Citizen go with the fucking CryEngine? MechWarrior Online ran into tons of problems because they were trying to base things on CryEngine. Everybody else uses Unreal, like a well-established engine. Now, I understand that Star Citizen is now, of course, having to move to Amazon's Lumber, whatever the fuck it is. I don't know.
I have no idea.
But you keep seeing these companies making these extremely costly foundational mistakes because they're going to develop their own engine or they're going to do something unique, special, and different, and then lo and behold, it turns out that it's a massive drag on their development.
This is one of the big problems with games like that is you can't do something like Star Citizen or World of Darkness on a budget because you have to get it done quickly. You have basically one technology cycle to develop and release it. And if you don't do that, you wind up like Dust 514. You release the game 2 months before the system is completely obsolete.
And that's where I think companies like that do GTA, Rockstar Games, and Bethesda do it right. They give an unlimited budget for a game like GTA 5, put as much money and funding and development into it as they can, get it out, it plays amazing, and they make way more money than they put into it. They may spend, it's like movie companies that spend $300 million on a movie that, like Marvel, for example, that they know is going to be a hit, that it's going to make $1 billion. So they don't mind spending the extra 10, 20 million, $30 million. And you're seeing that with a company recently called, I think it's called Tencent, who a couple years back, they bought into League of Legends, a free-to-play game. They dropped a shitload of money into it, and they've made a shitload of money off of it, and it's still free to play the game. They recently put into a game called Path of Exile, another free-to-play game, where that company's only ever made money off of cosmetics. But yet, they threw money at that, which is a New Zealand company. So, you're seeing that with, I guess, big-name companies. And, yeah, Wing Commander was great, and I this may be disingenuous to him, but I think he's living off the fame that, hey, I made Wing Commander, throw money at me. It's going to be amazing.
How many technology cycles is my dog going to live for? What the hell is a technology cycle?
Oh, that's so shameful.
Like console generation or video card generation.
No, I get what he's saying.
Game engines, one game engine comes into use, the other falls out.
It's like the guys that buy the Titan X graphics card, Merkle Chan, and then a year later they announced the 1080 for half the price and twice the power. It's like
so which one do I want?
The 1080.
And it can also be when like something cool like physics is added. I remember when physics first came into gaming, that was something else.
I don't know. Star Citizen, I watched the trailer at Twitch. I just don't see how it's ever going to be a thing. It's going to be one of those games where 3 years from now we're still going to be making fun of it.
Look,
hey, thanks, Shigley.
Fuck Star Citizen. That shit is vaporware. Get over it.
Right. And speaking of great things, I'll take this moment, since we're almost out of time here, to point to a wonderful drawing that was done recently. I don't remember the artist's name that makes these, but he always makes these great images.
Catlos.
What was that again? Sorry?
It's Catlos.
Yeah, so he makes these images, and he shows Delve. And you have a beautiful avatar shooting at the gates of Delve and our enemies fleeing. The only thing I think he missed was the CO2 guy had hands on him, but that's okay. I can't fault him for that. But the rest is amazing. Like, that's a hilarious drawing.
Also, I want to give a shout out here as we're about to wrap up the show. Andel Channer too. I don't know if he made it or some guy in Minitrue made it, but the link of the Delve time unit system there is fantastic. If you guys haven't seen that.
Wait, what? Link that. Hold on. Andel did?
It's linked in chat. Yeah, the Delve time unit here.
Holy shit!
That's the link to put up on the screen at some point. I don't know if you can do that now or maybe next week, but
I can put it up right now. Give me 2 seconds.
It's a Minitrue thing, and it's badass as hell. But we're going to put this up here, and once Boat is done with that, we're going to
Yeah, you guys could
wrapping up the
anything
show for
final
today.
things. Our
But
wonderful
yeah, I
CSM
want to go
members.
ahead and thank everybody. Oh, quick question to the CSM.
Yeah, final things.
From Duck Killer, which is, can you guys get CCP to stop showing the PL recruitment video while we're docking our goon citadels because fuck those guys? It's a reasonable question with the advertisements in station.
They need to fix the advertisements because I wanted to advertise in stations, but they wouldn't let us do it. So we got to start getting.
Yeah,
some new
that's an
videos. They're
interesting thing. All right, so here we go. So this is the Delve economic unit. Is that what he calls it? Delve time unit?
Delve time unit. Reading is hard. There you go. All right. Well, thank you guys very much for coming here, and thank you to Minitrue for developing the Delve time unit infographic, and thank you very much to our CSM representatives. No longer candidates, but representatives out there. We really have just done a bang-up job.
Merkel Chan, before we go, we got to go here in a second, but they want to know how you got that hat.
The hat actually came from a Twitch streamer dude that we started following during Saturday Night Swarms, who's a DJ that streams at the club.
Can you link that? Can you give me that link?
Yeah, somebody link that and link mine one still. He's a cool dude. We just started watching his stream when we were doing Saturday Night Swarms, so he made some good stuff. He's in Goons now, so he's good to go.
Oh, he actually plays Eve.
He does, yeah. He streams Eve 3 nights a week now. He's set it up, so he'll be streaming later tonight.
Oh, it's Mind One, right?
Yep.
Yeah, that guy is well worth watching. So tonight, around 10 or 11 tonight, a wonderful stream will probably be broadcasted to all to enjoy, and I highly recommend tuning in because it is hilarious.
Looks like Merkel Chin is getting ahead of the game there for that, which is excellent.
You got to get your mind right to do what I do.
Yeah, I got to go to the gym, so I can't do that, or I would join you. But
so true.
All right, guys,
boys and girls.
another great week.
Thank you very much for coming. Yeah, we will reconvene here next week, and congratulations to all of you.
Yep. Thanks, guys. See you later.
You are about to receive messages that may be harmful to your mental state. Your sense of reality will be questioned. Your view on things will be altered. You are now part of the meta. The meta controls everything. The meta determines what will and will not happen.